Good morning, Christina.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I'll give it quick. Hello.
Thank you.
Dr. Grant, if you can hear this, just give me a thumbs up. Awesome. Thank you.
Second grandbaby? But like I told
Recording in progress.
All right. Good morning and welcome to today's meeting of the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. As is our custom, I'm going to have all the board members introduce themselves, say where they're from, and then we'll go to Christina, who's attending virtually today. Mary Ann.
Mary Ann Stewart, Lexington.
Farzana Mohammed, Newton. Good morning.
Erica Fisher, Worcester.
Matt Hills from Newton.
Catherine Craven, Brookline.
Pedro Martinez, Commissioner.
Pat Tutwiler, Secretary.
Marty West from Newton.
Isabella Chamberlain from Hudson.
Dali DeHasha, Worcester.
Kristen Smitty, Westfield.
Christina.
Christina Grant, Cambridge.
Thank you. I'm going to start off with the public comment period. Each person will have 3 minutes to address the board. You will hear a warning bell at 2 minutes, 30 seconds, and then a second bell at 3 minutes when you need to conclude your remarks. Our first speaker is Karis McLaughlin on support of biliteracy.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I am happy to support biliteracy. I think it's one of the most important things that we can do for kids is give them access to the world, and to do that through allowing them access to another language. I would like to add, and I haven't looked at all of your regs, but Latin is also an important language to include. So I want to make sure that that happens. And then I want to say it should start at age 3. So don't wait until they're in the 7th grade. Make sure that every early learning center is able to give kids access, because at that point, they are truly bicultural. And I think that's the best thing. I spent a year in Argentina as a college student, my first year. And it's probably the best education that I ever got, being able to go to another country where I had no support, no family support, and had to depend on my circle. And I learned so much. I learned a lot about Nazism also, and that was a very interesting sort of thing because America had not prepared me for that kind of history. So it's a good thing for kids to have access. So fully in support. I do want to also address the fact that there was a Boston Globe article, I think a couple of weeks ago, and I did send information to the board previously, where the claim was made that the suburban schools are funded at higher rates than urban schools. That cannot happen. That just can't happen. And BESE does have a responsibility to review how school building funds are used, because a lot of it is predicated on racial imbalance contracts that schools already have with the state, which gives them 75%. And those are your suburban schools largely. So we cannot have inequities where I was at a meeting, a community meeting in Roxbury, and Mayor Wu was there having a conversation. And there was a little girl, very articulate, African American, and the mayor was talking about the schools. And this little girl looked up and said, "Could you fix the walls?" And so I said, "What do you mean, the walls?" She said, "We need our walls fixed in the school." Now, what I can tell you is $100 million went through the RIAC committee in 2023. That was for HVAC. We were never sure how that money, one, came through our committee at all, and two, how it was finally spent. We need to keep track on what funds are going to which kids. That is our responsibility. It's firmly entrenched in John Adams' words, where he said all kids, in his way, should be educated equally. So I think we have an opportunity as we look at MCAS. We need to think about very quickly what we look at this year, not 3 years down the pike while a committee is deciding what needs to be done. DESE has all of the data it needs, and I recommend that every school is looked at and the report is done. People need to know that they are still accountable for each one of our children, and without measurement, it will never occur. So thank you again for allowing me to speak. I wish you the best with all of your work. And when I find interesting things, I'll send them to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Karis. Next up, Tyrone Mowat, Managing Director of Ed Inquiry.
I've left a document with you all that says 2019 on the. Good morning, Chair Craven, Secretary Tutwiler, Vice Chair Hills, Commissioner Martinez. I am again here today to ask and implore the board to push for reforms at BESE that would benefit thousands of lower-income students in our neighborhoods and our rural towns in the West and in districts far from the affluence that we as a Commonwealth celebrate. Commissioner Riley often told us that although Massachusetts can claim to be #1 in education, that was only for some. The action of this board is the only hope for neighborhoods and families from Haverhill to Fall River, from Lawrence to Brockton to Worcester and Springfield, and as far as Pittsfield. Last month, BESE presented the results of the last MCAS, and the board reacted as they should have. Vice Chair Hills posed a question. I don't think it's difficult, he said, and I don't think this is an impossible task to come up with imperfect but good analysis of what seems to be working and what doesn't. Vice Chair Hills went on to say later in the meeting regarding MCAS reporting, constantly going back to 2019 is really helpful, and if you start breaking your data out into subgroups, yeah, it's scary what you see in there. Member Fisher remarked, our students are underperforming at a rate that is beyond tragic. Member Grant interjected, so I just wonder what the new charge is. Members of the board, these latest MCAS results are what should have been expected, as DESE implemented policies of accountability over the objections of several board members here. The state's accountability system seemed designed to push forward great districts like Andover, Lexington, and Newton, while holding often ignored rural communities, lower income communities, minority communities, and perpetual poverty through the devastating but often imperceptible communal violence called institutional lowered expectations. If any of you want to know what works, you will not likely find it in this building. It is in the field, in schools demonstrating success, in districts trying new innovative ways to engage students, in organizations where innovators are designing new ways to reach our children. But these voices go unheard. Results don't lie. Look at the results of the billions spent. 80% of the students of color can't meet grade level expectations. Those people that control the data control the narrative. Who is holding DESE accountable? Researchers of color are often pushed out, and the board is given pablum when a 3-alarm fire is occurring. Secretary Tutwiler, I'm a businessman by training at Columbia University, MBA from the 1980s. Please, respectfully and with much admiration, ask the governor, where are we as a Commonwealth to find the globally competitive workforce for our future if these are the results of our K-12 education system today? Member West, they should have listened to you when you objected when DESE lowered the standard for our students, or should I say some of our students, and when the well-funded powers within the state sought to do away with the MCAS and any accountability. The board has a choice now, major reform or more excuses. Finally, I have been requesting the latest data from DESE to further evaluate a program that has demonstrated promise that many board members and families across the Commonwealth know about, but the not developed here syndrome is pervasive in this building. The people that control that data control the narrative. Researchers of color need a place at the table and support from this board. I implore the board for assistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mowat. Okay. Surprisingly, that is our last public speaker today, which is very interesting. Thank you all for coming. So I'm going to turn to also I should note that this meeting is being recorded. Everybody, any objections say. I'm going to turn to my opening comments, which just are comprised of committee assignments, because I promised it at the last meeting. So we generally have some committees that meet more frequently, some that are sort of standing, but I see committees as a way of sort of dispersing the power basically of the board, right? And that we can come to each meeting with committee reports as those happen or occur or timely for our newer members. So we have the Commissioners' Performance Evaluation Committee, and that's a standing existing committee, so reappointing that committee, Matt as the chair, me, Marty, Erica, and I think we might add one more person to that, but I'm not really sure, but I'll get to that. The Budget Committee, which is more of an urgent matter because House 1 is being prepared right now for late December submission to the governor's office, and it's important that Farzana, our chair, have her committee together. So I think we had reached out to everybody who's on there, but Helene has the names. Your first meeting is coming up, right?
Correct.
Kristen, Marianne didn't want to do it this time. Dalida, Isabella, if you could just find a time at any time to just take a look at what the budget submission is going to be for the board, and then come back at the November meeting or December, having met. The Teacher Diversity Committee, Marianne has asked to chair this committee this time, so I think that's really great, and I'll talk to you, Marianne, about members that you might want to pick for that. The Literacy Committee, which is also standing, Mike Moriarty has agreed to continue, even as he's not a board member, but like, we're coming to the finish line on certain legislative initiatives, which he had actually spearheaded with Senator Sal DiDomenico and others in the House and Senate, so I think it's good to not change that up too much. And Isabella has expressed an interest in serving in some capacity on that as well. And then finally, you know, we come to these meetings with a lot of, there's separate paths, like we've spent a lot of time on data and evaluation, not only for accountability and MCAS and replacements for MCAS or replacements for the graduation requirement, but also on best practices and innovation. And I've had just various people with missionary zeal. Like, one of the things I wanted to do was get out there with the board and go to every district in the Commonwealth and, you know, actually have board meetings in the districts, so that it's difficult with the apparatus and the public meeting and the videoing and all that. But having a best practice and innovation committee could highlight those things, and we could have the opportunity to go and have committee members see things that are happening across the Commonwealth and report back to the board, even when we don't have the chance to go ourselves. So I've asked Dr. Christina Grant to chair the Best Practice Innovation Committee, and Dr. Erica Fisher, Mary Ann Stewart, Dalida, and Farzana have agreed to serve on that. For data and evaluation, which is everything from vocational ed, I think Dr. Mowat would agree that having a best practice innovation and a data and evaluation committee at the board highlights those issues and best practices that he's frequently coming before us, as well as Karis is. A data and evaluation committee led by Matt Hills and Dr. Marty West, Dr. Kristen Smitty, and anybody else who wants to serve on that committee in particular. But having that structure, Commissioner, I think is good, is a way of getting a sounding board, because I know that there's a lot of things that you have to do behind the scenes to make sure that board members are kept up to date, and having the structure of the committees, I think, helps in that and keeps us current on what's going on. So with that, I'll turn over my time to the Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will make a concerted effort to be brief this morning. I will start with this. STEM Week 2025 has come and gone. Last week was a really amazing week to celebrate all of the wonderful things that are happening in STEM education, STEM activities, from our earliest learners in early education through college, right to career. Commissioner and I had a wonderful opportunity to kick off the week in community with about 400 educators in Marlborough for the Project Lead the Way convening, and from there went on to a host of other events. In addition to sort of highlighting or putting a light on all of the wonderful activities that are going on, it's also our opportunity to demonstrate our commitment to deeper learning, to more opportunities to supporting the sector in STEM education. $13.5 million for skills capital grants, which help schools modernize their lab spaces or purchase equipment. $8.5 million for career connected learning, whole host of activities under that umbrella. $5 million for Innovation Career Pathways for 26 high schools, 10 of which are brand new to that sector, bringing us to about 30% of eligible high schools in Massachusetts having at least one Innovation Career Pathway, and other things. We were really heartened by what we saw, I believe, last week. Commissioner would agree, and would name that STEM Week is not just about the week. We celebrate it during that week in October, but it's really about all of the wonderful things that are ongoing in the Commonwealth relative to STEM education and creating that pathway to what we know are high demand careers in Massachusetts. As many of you know, we recently announced a series of public listening sessions to solicit feedback on Chapter 70, the school finance formula. These listening sessions are part of a Chapter 70 local contribution study that was introduced in the FY26 budget and conducted by finance leadership right here at BESE in partnership with the Division of Local Services. The input collected at the systems listening sessions plus local research will inform a report that will be delivered at some point this summer. For those who are interested, you can find information on the 4 remaining listening sessions, one of which is this week, on DESE's website under the search terms contribution study, or you can submit public comment via email at c70publiccomment, no spaces, at mass.gov. I know where I am right now. This is the Board of Elementary and Secondary. Sometimes I don't know where I am, but I know where I am right now. Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, but I want to underscore that our work creates a pathway for young people to access higher education. And in partnership with the Department of Higher Ed and this administration, we're working to ensure that there's barrier-free access to higher education. And that all of the wraparound supports are there toward completion. A lot has happened over the past 2.5 years. We've doubled financial aid, created a scenario where Pell-eligible students have tuition and fee-free access to public institutions of higher ed. There's free community college for everyone, and we've deepened the wraparound supports as well. All of this is now captured under an umbrella strategy that we call Go Higher. Go Higher is part of a larger commitment to equity and representation for our learners. It's not enough to simply remove financial barriers. We must also actively show that every student from every background has a place in higher education in this state. This campaign makes that message visible across Massachusetts, and for those who are interested, you can find more mass.gov under the search terms Go Higher. Finally, Commissioner Martinez and I continue to make good progress in partnership with the K-12 Graduation Council. You will recall that we've already released a vision for a Massachusetts high school graduate. This is built on research for sure, but then also broad-based feedback. We intend to take the next step by releasing a set of preliminary recommendations next week, which will offer a foundation around learning expectations, assessment, and civic, college, and career readiness, on which we will continue to build in preparation for a set of final recommendations due in June of 2026. That is all, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Turn over to Commissioner Martinez.
Thank you, Board Chair. Thank you, Secretary. So first of all, I just want to thank just the warm reception I received all across our Commonwealth. I've been traveling all over the state. I wish I had a map in my brain because I can never tell where I'm at, but I'm always, driving through different neighborhoods, always amazed by both the beauty, it's just a very beautiful state. I'll just say that. And this is hopefully my last state, my 4th state. And, just being able to be in community, for example, with the multilingual community, I got a chance to visit Chelsea and just saw some wonderful work going on. But, one thing that, and I know the Secretary and I have also talked to multiple advocates of the multilingual community, and just hearing their voice about making sure that our students are that we see multilingualism, multiculturalism as an asset and something to build on. And I think many of us have that, firsthand experience. And so that's been very heartening. Been able to talk to various group of students, including at the Secretary's former district, Lynn, just being able to hear directly from students about, and just being able to ask them about, the things we're thinking about for new graduation standards, what their experiences have been. Again, has been very heartening just in meeting students all across the Commonwealth. I will say, STEM Week, everybody just floored me. So we got to go to I want to make sure I say it right, the Massachusetts Maritime Academy. So if I would, if you have not seen that, I would put that on your list to go see. So both the secretary and I got a chance to be in a multi-million-dollar simulator where you could actually be driving a ship, whether it's Boston Harbor or other parts of our Commonwealth. But that was nothing, trustees. They actually have a Navy carrier or a military carrier, like full-size boat on the campus. And the students actually go out for 2 months and get to learn everything about the ship. And so we got to see college students. We also got to see some high school students. And so, my gentle push to everybody was, I want to see more of our high school students in that environment. But they do have an early college program there. But it's just in the beginning stages. Also, we were at Framingham State. I got to see, some amazing resources there as well. So it really just continues to confirm for me just how we need to leverage our K-12 and higher ed resources together. And that's something that Commissioner Ortega and I are going to be, just champions in, just because we see the possibilities. So with that, as the secretary said, we are continuing to work with our grad council, and those recommendations will continue to inform the priorities of the agency. And so trustees and community members, I've been going out and just talking to various groups from our different associations, group of superintendents, and just really talking about what our agency's priorities are going to be for the, just as we start shaping them. And trustees, we will be having a deeper conversation at our upcoming board team meeting that's coming up on November 7th. But the one thing I want to assure you is that much of our critical work will continue, whether it's around our work around social and emotional learning, family engagement. But with that also, we also want to start looking at the challenges that we see in our Commonwealth and making sure that our priorities can reflect that. Whether it's, again, the amazing opportunities we have to leverage our early college programs. I got to see multiple career tech academies this month that it just continue to confirm for me that, just wonderful experiences for students, and another way for us to continue to invest in our schools. We will continue to prioritize, of course, our literacy initiative. Today, I'm excited for the board to see some of the work we're doing on the math and STEM side. So again, another area, as the secretary said, that we want to make sure we continue to prioritize. And then as well as just really making sure that we continue to support, as we look at our results, just our schools that are struggling across the Commonwealth, working in partnership with our school districts. So with that, everybody, more to come as we have our November retreat. And then lastly, I just want to celebrate the great news about one of our former board members, former member Michael Moriarty, who was recognized by the National Association of State Boards of Education for the 2025 Distinguished Service Award. It's NASB is the acronym, but it's their highest honor for state board members. So as I know that many of you have worked with Member Moriarty, and I think it was a great recognition. I have a quote here from Vice Chair Hills. He says, Member Moriarty's impact as a colleague, especially on the literacy policy, will long outlast his time on the board. Michael brought clarity, persistence, and the heart of the work, and for that, we are deeply grateful. So again, I just want to congratulate former Member Moriarty for this amazing award, and I'll turn it back to the chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think Mike Moriarty's service on the board is a testament to singular focus, and he taught me a lot. I know he's taught a lot of us. Every time I saw him, he was looking at his third grade reading scores whenever somebody would come up from a district, and he would question that person if they were here, whether or not on something completely irrelevant to reading scores was always relevant to Mike. And so I learned a great lesson from Mike, and I'm so pleased that he got that award. And congratulations to Mike, because I'm sure he's watching us right now, too. So thank you for that. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the meeting from September 30th. Any questions or changes? If not, can I have a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
And I have to do a roll call. Colleen will call the roll.
Okay. I know I have some new members, so I'm going to read the roll in alphabetical order by last name, with then the secretary and the chair. So I have Member Chamberlain first.
Aye.
Okay, great, thank you. Member Fisher?
Yes.
Member Grant?
Yes.
Member Hills?
Yes.
Member Mohammed?
Yes.
Member Hasha?
Yes.
Member Smitty?
Yes.
Member Stewart?
Aye.
Member West?
Yes.
Chair Craven?
Yes.
And Secretary Tutwiler?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Great, thanks, Helene. First up on the agenda, update on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics initiatives. Turning it over to you, Commissioner Martinez.
Thank you, Chairwoman Craven. So I will now introduce our first agenda item on STEM initiatives happening across the Commonwealth. So coming up is our amazing leader, Erin Hashimoto Martel. She's our Associate Commissioner. Dr. Fabrice Kajanga, sorry, sir. Our math specialist from DESE, Dr. Ian Stith, and Kate Lally, who are Assistant Director of Math and the Supervisor of Mathematics, K-12 at Haverhill Hills Public Schools. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us.
All right, good morning, everybody. It's great to be here. As the Commissioner said, I'm Erin Hashimoto Martel. I'm the Associate Commissioner overseeing instructional support here at the department. We're trying to extend that STEM Week feeling from last week, and excited to bring to you today a couple initiatives that we are leading on the STEM team that are really about supporting all students in accessing the grade level meaningful learning experiences. So I'm here with both the math team and the science team and some district representatives, all who are just deeply committed to supporting all students. So we're going to talk about today, first we're going to talk about high dosage tutoring and mathematics and talk a little bit about what we've been doing to support in that area. And then second, we'll do a little switch up at the table and we'll talk about the science curriculum adaptation project for special educators, which we call SCAPE. So with that, I will turn it over to Ian.
Morning, everyone. Morning, everyone. Ian Stith, Assistant Director for Math here at the department. So today we'll provide a summary of the high dosage tutoring in math program. We're going to provide an overview of the program, how it was designed and run, discuss the impact of the program, talk about lessons learned and next steps for where we're moving going forward. So we're going to hear about that program-wide. We're also going to hear from Kate here from her experience in Haverhill. And my associate Kanjenga is here. He ran the program on the day-to-day operations, so if we have any particular questions that come up, he'll be able to answer those as well. All right. So the program ran for the 2003 through 4 and 2024 through 25 school years. We contracted directly with vendors to provide the tutoring services, and you'll see them listed there, rather than a grant approach. So the first year we had these 5 vendors. In the second year we ended up with going with just one vendor, which was Imagine Learning. We designed the program based on Ed Research for Recovery guidelines, and that included sticking with the 12-week cycle, using 90 minutes per week for our tutoring, and most schools accomplished 2 to 3 cycles during the year, depending on when they began and their in particular scheduling constraints. We focused on 4th and 8th grade students. A couple of reasons for that, but in particular that we would have better data to identify which students to work with and be able to see their results moving forward, and also 8th grade in particular being a transition point for students going to high school. We coordinated our overall approach with our literacy colleagues since we were both running high dosage tutoring programs. So we tried to make our systems follow similar design, and we coordinated our communication and tried to make things similar for the district perspective and make sure we were all following best practices. So in terms of the reach of the program, this was funded by ESSER funds for both years. We had about $2 million each school year. We served 54 districts, coincidentally, both years. different numbers of schools, and more than 3,000 students every year. Student numbers, the students in some cases, as I said before, finish one cycle. Sometimes they did more than one. It depended on the needs of that particular student. So this map represents, some of the places that we worked across the state in both years. So we identified schools and prioritized schools, particularly in the first year, based on their accountability status, the need of the school overall, or district overall as well, their MCAS performance. So we looked at places that it would be a good fit in terms of the student population. We also looked at the demographics of the school district and where there was more students in need, in particular English learners. And year two, we did the same. However, really didn't have to say no to really anyone in terms of the interest matched more or less what we had available. Although there was some, cases where it didn't quite work out in terms of what they were trying to do. But for the most part, we were able to move forward with everyone who wanted to participate. So we did include places like Holyoke and Springfield, Fall River, Brockton, Lynn, Lawrence, etc. So we had a good and very small places as well across the state. We had a good variety of participation. So overall for the program, we particularly look here at year two. And so in this case, we had the one vendor, as I mentioned earlier, Imagine Learning, and we're able to compare the pre and post assessment performance for students in 4th and 8th grade for both cycles. So overall, there was progress that students were making over the 12-week cycle. And the particular assessment they were using was designed in conjunction between the vendor and the districts to prioritize the content that the district was working on or the school was working on in particular. And we were also, in similar vein, able to look at how they performed on that in particular, or that particular content for each grade. As I said, we gave the vendors a focus for what to work on in each grade level, but then they took that in more detail with the schools to identify what content areas they really needed to focus on for those particular students. But overall, we did see students grow in all the different content areas that we focused on. The strongest gains in 4th grade in particular were with fractions and decimals, with fewer students making gains in multiplication and more frequently students doing a little worse after the tutoring, but still overall improving. Likewise.
Can I just ask one question? Yeah. I promise I'm just to make sure this slide I understand.
Sure.
These results are rather startling in a good way. Is there any point of comparison that you have in here for, students who weren't subject to the high dose tutoring, but there may be other things that had gone on in the class? So we see whether, how much of this is attributed to high dose tutoring.
Yeah, I don't have an easy answer to that. We didn't do a comparison study. Given the nature of the assessments for math and the variability across all the districts, it's not, the marketplace isn't quite the same as like a Dibbles, for example, for literacy, right? And so we didn't institute a mandatory common assessment across all places so that we could also assess students that were not participating in this case. So we were just focused on providing the pre and post for the students that were in the program itself. So I don't have a quality control group, let's say, right, or a comparison group in that situation. Yep.
So I was a bit surprised to see the data on student performance understanding multiplication. And do you have a sense, looking at the different kinds of programs and approaches, whether there were differences in how that was taught? Was there variation in the programs?
Sure.
I'm just curious, what did you learn from this?
Right, so for this year in particular that we're looking at, this was all one program. This was all through the Imagine Learning company. And so they do use essentially the illustrative math material in an adapted way for the tutoring. So it was consistent. So I don't have a particular theory as to why multiplication itself would have been a challenging area, but it's definitely something to investigate further, for sure.
Interesting, thank you.
I have a follow-up on that as well, and then that also in that decrease in multiplication. Was there any data on like the students that saw that decrease? I'm just like thinking in terms of like newcomers or English learners. When you first transition from a country to this country, is a different style of learning. Therefore, like your math scores decrease. I've seen that happen, and like, so do you have any data on those students?
Sure. So I don't have it at the level of multiplication specifically, but to answer the general question, so on average, the scores from the pre to post were consistent across the different demographic groups in general. However, to your point, for grade 4, English learners experienced less growth overall than the non-English learners, and for grade 8, students attending a Title I school experienced less growth than those in the non-Title I schools.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good.
Okay. Similarly for 8th grade, we could look at this information also, obviously different content. But again, overall improvement for both cycles in general, with the strongest growth for real numbers as a category, with 90% of the students increasing. And I will say, though, that overall 8th grade was not as strong as the 4th grade in terms of its improvement as well. And we can talk about that a bit as well as we get to some of the other findings in the future. But to summarize, 8th grade, the nature of the school itself in terms of the scheduling of the tutoring was harder to manage for the schools often. It doesn't fit into the school day in the exact same way, given the constraints of a middle school schedule in general. And also the student interest was a different challenge for a middle school student versus a 4th grade student. And how it was staffed as well was another difference in terms of how the middle school and the elementary school performed. But these are the program-wide findings that we have, or some of the findings that we have so far. I'm going to pass it over to Kate here, our colleague from Haverhill, to go into detail about her experience with the program.
Thank you, Ian. So I'm Kate Lally. I'm the district math supervisor for Haverhill. And I wanted to just say my sincere gratitude to all of the teachers, staff, and administrators across Haverhill Public Schools for the commitment to this work, particularly our superintendent, Dr. Margaret Murata, and the assistant superintendent, Bonnie Ankoviak, for their unwavering commitment to opportunities for all students. And also a huge thank you to the board for providing this opportunity for continued work with our students. Today I want to talk about the exciting outcomes of the high dosage tutoring program, demonstrating the significant return on our collective investment. The program successfully engaged over 200 students in Haverhill Public Schools in grades 4 and 8 through 2 cycles. Crucially, this is not a standalone initiative. It is a high-fidelity Tier 2, Tier 3 intervention and an integral systematic component of our multi-tiered system of supports framework. The data shows this system is working to accelerate student learning where it is needed most. The impact on student achievement is clear. We measure success by the rate of academic acceleration using iReady data. That's one of our diagnostics. In cycle 1, 58% of participating students achieved more than 1.5 grade levels of growth. This confirmed the program's immediate effectiveness. And in cycle 2, we saw a significant jump to 72% of students achieving 1.5+ years of grade level growth. This upward trend confirms the program's sustainability and refinement within the MTSS model. Furthermore, over 35% of these intervention students scored above the 60th percentile for student growth as demonstrated on the MCAS scores. This means our targeted investment is helping students not just catch up, but accelerate their learning trajectory faster than their peers. This is a direct indicator that the resource allocated to this program are yielding high-impact measurable results, in conjunction with strong Tier 1 instruction using high-quality instructional materials.
Kate, to that point, do you guys use illustrative math in Haverhill?
We do not. We use Eureka Math Squared.
Interesting, thank you.
I was thinking about that question, and I think that sometimes our fourth graders were struggling with, there was a lot of different methods for the multiplication, as well as when we identified the pathways for instruction, they might not have selected, I know in conversations with my fourth grade teachers, they knew that they were hitting math multiplication within the tier 1, so they put them into the fractions pathways, knowing that that is historically a bigger gap to fill in.
I wondered that because when Ian said that this program was aligned to illustrative math, I feel like that's a specific type of instruction. So, thank you.
Okay, so impact on classroom culture.
Sorry, can I ask?
Sure.
Could you explain the differences between the two? Like, what are just broadly?
So,
different
in terms of like illustrative math
yeah,
versus.
yes, really,
okay.
really broadly.
Absolutely. So illustrative math is a very conceptual-based, problem-based math resource. They build a lot more into investigations and hands-on to have that conceptual understanding. So our program, Eureka Math Squared, has a little bit more. It still has the conceptual understanding, but there's that touch of application and procedure that you need for the whole amount of rigor within a program. So it's not as conceptually heavy, if that makes sense.
And generally, districts, if they have gone through a selection process to pick a high-quality instructional material, Eureka is one, Reveal, IM. So based on which one they pick, it could align differently with this tutoring, if the tutoring is aligned to IM.
So you're saying these are conceptual, symbolic kinds of, and when you say hands-on, you're just talking about manipulatives?
So,
or are you talking about specific tactile approaches?
So the tier 1 will have a lot of manipulatives. The tutoring did not necessarily have it. It was more based on like the whiteboard workout. Students would have access to it, but at times it was limited based on how it was being delivered.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I would just say that in the tutoring setting, they would change that into more of a virtual manipulative. So they did have like a workspace, like Kate mentioned. For the most part, people chose the virtual tutoring approach. There was one vendor the first year that we used some in person, or two of them actually, I should say, the first year that offered in person. I would say in general, districts appreciated the virtual in the sense that they were able to start like right away, basically in the beginning of the year, and there wasn't a delay in hiring staff. And then there was also more consistency across all the tutors as well, because they would be trained in the same way and they had oversight and so forth from the vendor. So there is pros and cons, obviously, but there is, from our perspective, program-wide, we were able to maximize the time and outreach, being able to begin early and really run it all the way through the end of the school year.
So to continue, the data is not only compelling, but the impact on the school environment was equally vital. The program is rebuilding student confidence, which translates directly into better classroom engagement. For one example, an 8th grade teacher reported that students that participated in the high dosage tutoring are raising their hands more and saying they know how to do it now. This demonstrates the successful transfer of small group learning back into the core classroom. And student voice validates the program's approach. A 4th grader shared, "I feel like I can participate in class with others now." And an 8th grader simply stated, "I like math now." The shift in self-perception is essential for long-term academic success, in particular with math. I did have an add-on too, that we had one 8th grader who was very proud that she had a D in math class and it moved up to an A. So I'm not sure if it's just the tutoring, but it was a nice picture of everything, so it just changed the attitude. Our MTSS framework requires us to be reflective. The growth from cycle 1 to cycle 2 confirms we successfully refined our student identification process, ensuring we maintain the integrity of our tier 2 and tier 3 supports. Moving forward, our strategic focus will include a specific concentration on 4th grade. This proactive measure is designed to solidify foundational skills at a critical transition point, ensuring early support and better long-term outcomes for students across the district. In closing, behavioral high-dosage tutoring is a successful component of our data-driven model that is accelerating student growth and serving as a cornerstone of our MTSS strategy. The results are clear, and the qualitative feedback from staff and students is overwhelmingly positive. We are prepared to discuss the details of our strategic plan for expanding this successful model to other critical areas. We are also looking forward to providing this high-dosage tutoring to another 100 third and fourth graders this year, thanks to our participation in the Tiered Math Academy and its offering of more high-dosage tutoring. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And I know we're going to go over our lessons learned, but I just want to just thank you for for both being, a champion for math in your district and being a leader. Because again, we talk a lot about literacy, but math is also very important. And also for so board members, really what this allowed us to do is to have to really show districts the possibilities and potential, because it is a lot of work to put in a tutoring program. I've done it at scale in a large district. There's a lot of components, whether it's the alignment of the content. In this case, we're using multiple providers. There's different curriculums because our districts use different curriculums as well. So that's just part of the challenge. The logistics of it, virtual versus in person, getting the exact right size of, because you sometimes as a district leader or even our leaders in math, you want to maximize the number of students. So there's always a temptation to put more students in front of a tutor than less, but then you lose some of the effectiveness. So it's all these things. And I'm really grateful for the fact that your district continued this even beyond. So this was, for 2 years, the state funded it, but really it was a way to show districts if this could work for you in your district, and if you could sustain it with your local funding, if it's an effective strategy for you to use. So I think it's just a good example of of our agency using federal funds to show districts this is what could be, because it takes a lot of work to build it, like to build the actual infrastructure. And by the way, it takes multiple years to perfect it. So it's good that we had some initial gains, but it just takes time. And so I just think it's just kudos to you and your district for being the leaders in this area.
Thank you.
Can I have one follow-up question to what the commissioner just said? So you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Like, it takes a big investment in infrastructure. It takes a while to perfect it. So this is using the funding, federal funding. Any sense of how much stickiness, how much continuity there is for districts beyond the 26 budget year, at least what their intentions are? So when they have to fund it, districts will have to fund it themselves, absent some other source of funding.
So Haverhill, you're going to continue that this year.
We are. Again, it's through the opportunity of the Tiered Math Academy. In terms of our LEA funding, I think that's something that we are going to propose within the budget due to the success of it. I think in support of what Commissioner was mentioning, our first cycle we had 272 students participating in it, but we lost a percentage of them through the course of the year and through the course of the cycle. And for cycle 2, we were a lot more targeted. We only had the 100 students participating so that we could ensure that they were getting the best opportunities and there wasn't too many kids doing it. So I think for us, we found the magic number is that 100 kids, give or take. And that's where we had more growth, which I think when we're going into the budget year, to be able to budget for a certain amount of students will be more successful for us in the long run.
So I guess the question is, do you have a sense of how many of our districts are going to continue with the tutoring now that it's really local funding instead of state funding?
We are working on it right now, and you just hit the point, right? This is it's a new product, like the commission just said, right? It's a very new product, and districts are trying to find a way to run this program, right? How many students doing it, right? Infrastructure and all those factors. However, as of right now, I'm still in touch with district to find out who's continuing the program, because the biggest issue is the budget.
I can imagine that and the uncertainty of Title I.
Exactly.
There's a lot of unknowns.
Yeah.
What is the average cost per district? Depending on, or per pupil, I guess.
Yeah,
or,
so typically it was somewhere in the range of $500 to $700 per student for the one cycle. So, and I can speak to this, I'll do this and then jump back actually. So speaking to some of what you were just asking about on the moving forward slide, we do currently have, to support districts to move forward with the program, we have put together a master service agreement with 5 and it will be 6 vendors soon, where we've basically done a review of an evaluation of their services to provide districts with a list of approved vendors, essentially, that are of high quality and are aligned with our findings so far and our perspective on what the tutoring should look like. And so that does allow district to move more quickly and more efficiently to be able to contract with them directly, and we do have funding or cost associated with that contracts as well. So that's on our site right now, and that's an ongoing open bid for vendors to apply to. We also do have on that site as well, and this is some of the work Jenga is continuing, is guidance for districts that want to implement this, and this is some resource that we intend to keep adding to. And some other states have good resources, like Mississippi, for example, has a great resource around how to get tutoring started that we can connect people with as well. And as Kate mentioned, our goal now is really to continue to push on this idea of how tutoring fits into the multi-tiered system of support. And that was part of our work as well, which I didn't really touch on so much yet. But year one, really just trying to get things rolling. In year two, we really did spend more time with districts talking about how the services were going to fit into their system. How is it really going to be sustainable, rather than just, here's some money, go do the tutoring, right? We really talked through, how's this going to work in the long term? Is it going to be successful? Do you have the right conditions in place to make the success moving forward? So just to highlight some of those things that we did learn, though, and I alluded this, sorry, I'm going back up one slide, but some of the things that we did learn programmatic-wise, as I said before, the middle school schedule is a big challenge, and so, districts should be aware of this before they do commit to something. What grades are they going to get the most impact for them, and what's going to be the most successful? Similarly, scheduling the tutoring during the school day was more impactful than after school, and that was in part had to do with schools that had the tutoring during the school day had higher attendance rates and were able to get started more quickly than those doing after school. Also keeping the groups, within a small ratio so that we don't end up with, 5 or 6 students for one tutor. Maintaining the consistent tutor was vitally important, so that the students were able to have trust in that person, especially in the virtual environment. You want people to feel that they're comfortable with the tutor and being able to ask questions. As we talked about earlier, as Kate mentioned, aligning the tutoring topics in with the classroom topics also seemed to work better. And I do want to say, like, in terms of the illustrative math versus other programs, as we've heard, there is a variety of programs that districts were using, but that was another conversation that we had with them, that they were really building off of their core Tier 1 instruction, that it wasn't like a standalone program, the tutoring. And so we did work with districts to really try to make as best an alignment as we could. And we did encourage the tutoring to be a conceptual base, and this is another aspect of MTSS. We didn't want the tutoring to be just a repetition of what they already covered in their classroom, right? So we were looking for something different and really to try to build up that conceptual base so that the students were able to get to the fluency with the content that they needed to get to. Not that the tutoring didn't also include procedural work, of course, and problem solving as well. But we really did strive for a balance there and to try to provide something that would increase their likelihood of accessing Tier 1 instruction. Just a couple of things otherwise, having that person in the site that was the lead was vitally important. And again, this may sound obvious, but just having a dedicated staff member that really coordinated the communication with the vendor, problem solved, took care of technology issues, et cetera, was vital to the program's success. Districts with a building level point of contact had higher rates of satisfaction when we surveyed them to the program, and than those that just had one solitary teacher who was sort of left to do that coordination. And as I mentioned before, the direct hiring of tutors by the vendors allowed us to maximize the funds as best that we could and to move things along as quickly as possible. So just to wrap things up, again, as I said, we are continuing to we're continuing to support districts to make informed choices about tutoring and helping them to get the program started. And we are continuing our analysis of the impact of the program. We do know what students participated last year, so we will be able to look at their MCAS performance as well. We just haven't done that yet.
Can I just ask you a question about how we measure success even as a board? Because it seems like we have evidence of something working when funding goes away, and this is not new, right? Like, there's lots of programs like this, and we talk about inculcating these practices into districts, but it's really not the board's role, right? Like, we have some programs like this. How do we define success? I guess maybe Commissioner, I'll toss to you, and then I'll call Dr. West because you had a question.
Yeah, so I think, so again, I think we have a great example of a district who saw success and is now you're looking how to, how to continue it in a very targeted way. And I think, so I'll answer it in two ways, Board Chair. So one is, everybody, we want to be very careful about looking for magic solutions, because those really don't exist. I mean, I've been pursuing magic solutions in this work since I started in education, 22 years ago. And trust me, in the districts that I've been and led, we've tried everything. Every curriculum, every initiative that you've heard, we've tried them. And what we learn is there's good, everything, they're all tools, and all the tools have their strengths. But really, it's really working, really meeting children where they're at and understanding, just like, if I was a construction worker or somebody who's, doing carpentry, they would tell you the tools are everything, right? They have a vision, but if you don't have the right tools, you're not going to be able to build a product. And so it really is, for our children, it's meeting them where they're at and understanding which tools are going to be the most effective, with the variable, by the way, of teacher capacity, because their teacher capacity can vary significantly. So I think I see this, Board Chair, as one, it's our ability, we know tutoring could be an effective strategy and an effective tool. This was a no-risk way for districts, and by the way, a large number of districts, so I really appreciate the state really going broad on this to say, okay, this is what it takes for you to put in the infrastructure. By the way, it's not going to be always pretty. You're going to have to adjust and make adjustments and pivots, and it could be an effective strategy as part of your multi-tier of interventions. So a good example, we have that. So I think for me, in terms of just going forward, I want to continue to have conversations with these districts, which we are. I want to understand where they see the value or where they don't, because I think that's valuable as well. And one thing that I was always fascinated with, for example, when we did this in my former district at scale, across 600 schools, what was fascinating to me was always how they picked which children. Because there wasn't, we didn't have the ability to do hundreds of thousands of students, and so they had to pick within each school the number of children. And I always found it fascinating, sort of the logic, between their and it was because it was a systemic approach. They had multiple ways multiple tools to support children, and so it was always figuring out which other children are going to benefit the most from specific tutoring versus, say, an intervention teacher in math, or more tier 1 instruction, or, just there were so many different ways. And so I think what I see, Board Chair, is us collecting this information, working with the current districts, sharing lessons, and then really working with the districts around the alignment of resources. So this was sort of a risk-free way to say, hey, you haven't thought about tutoring, we want you to try it. It's a lot of work. We'll provide you some resources. But by the way, if this is an effective strategy, then it has to become, you have to prioritize it within your own resources, because unfortunately, we're not always going to have additional new money, right? So for us who have been superintendents, that's just our world. It's rare when you always have additional new money. Most of the time, you're actually trying to make decisions with existing resources. So our goal, Board Chair, is going to be to work with the current districts, lessons learned, and then for districts who really, again, are seeing it as an effective tool, work with them to see how they can continue it and also do it in an effective way. Because sometimes also, by the way, some of the districts, I'm pretty sure they didn't have I'm pretty sure there was a variability in terms of the results that we saw. And we're still, by the way, looking deeper into that.
Dr. West?
Quick question, either in Haverhill or more generally, given that this was taking place for the most part during the school day and you saw that as a bonus, what is it displacing in the schedule of a student who's participating in tutoring? Does it mean they're missing some whole class instruction? Does it mean they're missing another subject? Does it mean they're missing recess? How do we handle that?
In general, I'll say depending on school. So they have, most of the school have the wind block, or they have, they'll call them anyways, right? So they will use those blocks to make sure the students are there.
So then the student is getting tutoring rather than another form of intervention, or the option sometimes to take advantage of visiting a teacher, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think it's important to understand that, because you could imagine the effects depending a lot on what is being displaced. I also, just more of a comment, I appreciate seeing the pre-post data, and it looks fairly encouraging, but it seems to me that there's a pretty straightforward opportunity here. We know who's participating, we know which schools are participating, to look at MCAS gains, across schools. Maybe it's not enough students that you would expect it to show up there, but then we should, I don't know, manage our expectations for the effects that we'll see. You can do comparisons within the same school, the kids who got tutoring and the kids who didn't. There's something strange about the 60% of kids, 30% of kids above the 60th percentile SGP. I would have thought 40% would be above the 60th percentile on SGP. And so there's something I'm not understanding about that sort of as a success indicator. And so I think getting the comparative data would be really important, and it's pretty straightforward when we have partial participation to make those comparisons.
Just to speak to I 100% agree that is, for the, looking back at our MCAS performance is something we're pursuing, definitely, right, in line with what you're saying. For the case of the 30%, we were looking at, generally speaking, most of the students are in the 40 to 60 percentile for student growth. And so we were looking at the people that are in that particular district, that's like statewide, right?
Yeah.
So then in that particular district, we were looking at the 30% of behavioral, or of the students, I think, that participated, right? Yeah, that participated were above that 60th percentile.
There's something I'm missing about that, but we can talk later.
Yeah.
Chairwoman, Christina has her hands up.
Oh, sorry, Christina. Thanks, Dahlia.
No worries. High impact tutoring is a fave of mine. I wanted to double on what Marty shared, in that it would be really helpful if you partnered with a research institution to conduct the study, not CEPR, let me be clear. But so many states that have made these investments have been able to do high quality research to validate the findings. That's going to be critically important to something the commissioner raised, that you actually could get very precise on which students are served, particularly as resources become more diminished. And I think that's just my overarching plug. I would love to see what research tells us about this outside of like the internal findings.
Can I just ask, as a follow-on to your question, Dr. Grant, the 1-8 Foundation had initially funded research on this. Is there like a body of work that is extant that we could add on to with the experience, or what?
Right,
How would you use it?
Yeah, so this past year we did have a contract for an evaluator. That contract has ended, in the similar timeline with the ESSER funds. However, what they are able to provide with us is some of what we've shared today. These are some of the highlights. There is additional information that they were able to collect as well. But the foundational information that they collect about the students would be able to allow us to continue to do address those questions about MCAS. Yes.
Yeah, I think with the, I think it's either Matt's committee or it bleeds into the board being really clear about the type of research we want associated with some of the investments that are coming out of BESE.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, board member, so for me, this was, because we completed this last school year, but to your point, it is, it's important, I had the same questions for the team in terms of making sure we make the connection to what we're seeing with our state results, because we do have 2 years, it's grades 4 to 8. I also think we're going to learn a lot even from the variability. So understanding the components of, because like I said, it's always fascinating to me, you know, even when we did it at a district level, the variability across schools and how that also impacted the data. So I think there's going to be all that to say, you know, we're going to dig deeper into the data itself just to learn to really take some more valuable lessons from this.
Just to pile on this point that you just made, Commissioner, and that Marty and Christina made, whether it's a control group, whatever you want to call it, I mean, the data is really powerful. It's hard to imagine that much of that improvement is not tied to the tutoring. And I don't know what the student groups are, how representative that is of the districts, but Christina kind of disclosed, you know, kind of SEPA, that's fine, but her colleague there, like Tom Kane, has done, you know, your colleague there has done an enormous amount of work. I mean, started presenting this a year and a half ago, you know, much more broadly across the state and states and districts. So you don't have to reinvent sort of the wheel in terms of some of the analysis and therefore the insights and therefore the help that you can bring to districts. I mean, this is terrific stuff, so it's not a critique of what you've done, but don't take it all upon yourself to kind of figure out exactly what you need to do to get that type of further insight and analysis that Marty and Christina and the board is talking about.
Thank you, team. So now, board members, we're going to bring in another presentation. And this is really exciting for me in terms of building also, this is really around teacher collaboration and teacher capacity.
Can I ask?
Go right ahead. Sorry, Dalida.
Actually, I'm a pass.
All right, well, great. Thank you. We are transitioning to our esteemed science team here at the department and district colleagues as well. So we have, and in a second I'll pass it over to Nicole Scola, our Assistant Director of Science. We have Cassandra, who's our science specialist, content support specialist, and then Kara Larcombe and Lynn O'Neill from North Andover Public Schools to talk about the Science Curriculum Adaptation Project for Special Educators, which has been a really exciting project that we have engaged in the past few years, so that we call SCAPE. And I'll pass it over to Nicole.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Nicole Scola, Assistant Director of Science here at BESE, and we're really excited to share a little bit about the SCAPE program today. And so the SCAPE program really began as a need. So we worked, Cassandra and myself worked with our MCAS Alt team, and we visited schools with doing their MCAS Alt portfolios, and we were seeing the need, the teachers were expressing their need for more science professional learning, more science resources. They didn't really have access to the materials and to adapt for their specific students' needs. And so we worked with our Student Assessment Services team to develop in the summer of 2022 and 2023 teacher professional development. So these were specific 4-day-long institutes for teachers that worked with severe or students of severe or moderate disabilities, and they took this 4-day professional learning to learn a high-quality science unit, and then we worked to adapt we worked with them to adapt the lessons to meet their student-specific needs.
Nicole, can I interrupt with a quick question, because I think it will help me understand the presentation, maybe others. What percentage of students, can you remind us, take the MCAS Alt?
1%.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's a very small,
Yep.
so this is a very small percentage of students. And so, again, so we ran these professional developments in 22 and 2023, and then we experienced the teachers saying, this is great, we love this, but you know, special education, that's just a very small percentage of students that get special education services. So in 2024, we redesigned the program to build leader capacity. So we were limited in the teachers we could serve, and so we wanted to expand this and build capacity. And so we redesigned the program with a focus on bringing together science and special education leaders. So they come as a team to this year-long institute. And through this institute, we really enable district leaders to support all teachers in accessing high-quality instructional materials in science with an emphasis on UDL learning and best practices in science teaching. And so this, in the school year 2024 to 25, we ran our first year-long institute, and then this year we've kicked off the second year. And in the next slide, you can see the different reach of the program. So the blue and the red dots are the teacher professional development, and then the gold and purple is districts that we brought together in this collaborative approach. And I'm going to turn it over to our North Andover team to kind of share a little bit about their experience in the year-long institute.
Good morning. My name is Lynn O'Neill. I'm the Director of Special Education for North Andover Public Schools.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. I'm Carol Arkham, and at the time I was the STEM director. I now am just a curriculum director. We've kind of spreading the wealth around our district.
We wanted to thank you for the opportunity to share North Andover's work through the SCAPE project. Our SCAPE team included our district curriculum director, special education director, and 2 high school biology and special education teachers. Together, we participated in the SCAPE professional learning sessions in December 2024, which allowed us to learn collaboratively and design our initial implementation plan with guidance from the facilitators. Our goal was to ensure biology and special education teachers could implement high-quality instructional materials and apply universal design for learning strategies so that every student can access rigorous grade-level science instruction. Excuse me. As we developed our plan, we identified the need to better understand how our district curriculum accommodation plan, or DCAP, was being used in practice. We decided to collect data about our DCAP use and conduct classroom observations to identify both strategies and areas for future professional development. This work is directly aligned with our district and school improvement goals, increasing access to grade-level instruction for all students. It also supports our broader vision of deeper learning, where students engage in meaningful discourse, explore phenomena, and use evidence-based reasoning to explain the world around them.
Over the past few years, we've spent time updating our DCAP to make it user-friendly, as well as make sure that it is utilizing strategies that are relevant to the students in front of us. Our science and our special ed teachers spent time during professional development analyzing their use of the DCAP. So on the slide, you can see a little visual. We had our DCAP pages for our high school teachers up on a smartboard, projected, and they really just checked off what strategies they were using. They were excited and felt really confident in proactively designing accommodations for students, which we're really pleased with. The conversations really led to conversations around how they were using these strategies in a classroom, and also identifying strategies that they wanted to get better at or learn more about. Our classroom visits, that's where I start going off script and excited about the work. Lose track of some things. So one of the things that they were excited is that they weren't really relying on last-minute supports for students, that they were really being proactive at providing access points for all of their students. When we observed classrooms together, utilizing the BESE observation tool, we pinpointed 4 specific areas of focus. And we had lots of bright spots, including clear learning goals, strong collaboration among students, and teachers actively supporting learners in small groups. However, of course, there were some areas that we knew we could get better at. Those including anchoring instruction more consistently in phenomena, grouping students intentionally to foster rich classroom discourse, and guiding students in developing and using scientific models to explain their thinking. These observations helped us plan our professional development priorities and provided a clear roadmap for next steps. By the end of the year, we saw several encouraging outcomes. Next. First, our classroom observation data showed clear improvement. All classes met expectation across our focus areas, and many exceeded them. Our teachers, Carrie and Ruth, were ready to launch Open SciEd in their college prep biology classrooms this school year, expanding high-quality, phenomena-based science learning to our highest need students. Building on the momentum, we planned professional development to deepen teachers' understanding of research-based strategies that promote both inquiry and discourse. And we're using the book study of The Ambitious Science Teaching to help us in that goal. Teachers are also beginning to explore Open SciEd in chemistry and physics to expand beyond biology. The work with the SCAPE team was super invaluable. We really were able to engage in the regular follow-up sessions with the team, getting both the accountability that we needed to make sure we were getting back into the classrooms and continuing to collect data and work with our teachers, and really maintain a focus on gathering that evidence to determine our future plans. These check-ins ensured that our progress continued throughout the year and set us up to scale up the work, both across schools and to more teachers across the district. We recognize that we're still at the beginning of this journey, but we are very encouraged by the growth that we've seen so far. Our collaboration through SCAPE has strengthened our teachers' capacity to deliver equitable, rigorous science instruction, and it's reaffirmed our commitment to improving access and outcomes for all of our students, especially those with disabilities. Thank you.
Hello there. I'm Cassandra, the science specialist, and good morning. So I'm just going to sum up some of the lessons that we've learned through this work. And I think the most important lesson that we learned back when we were working directly with teachers, that we continue to learn working with leaders, is that students can access high-quality science learning, period. They can. We know that if you don't challenge students, then they will never meet the challenge, right? And that is being evidenced through this work. So we've got some photos here from students in Boston and Worcester, and they're really engaging in science that's hands-on as well as minds-on. And that is the critical piece that high-quality instructional materials provide when we're doing science with all students. So not only are they enjoying themselves and engaging in fun science, but they're being pushed to think deeply, and they're being pushed to engage and show and explain their sense-making in the way that they can do that. One of the commenters mentioned something about giving students access to the world, and I wrote that down because that was so, I think, applicable to this program too, because again, if you don't give a chance to students to show you what they can do, then they'll never show you what they can do. And so the students can access these materials, but it happens when science and special education teachers and leaders have that time and resources to co-plan and collaborate. And that collaboration is really what bears out the success that we can see. So in terms of next steps for our districts, we again are doing the second year of this institute, which means we're starting a second cohort, but we're also continuing to work with the cohort 1 districts with sort of a lighter touch in consulting and helping them bring their plans to fruition that they've made throughout the first year. Did I lose? Oh, okay. So yes, just to sort of like narrate through that first program year is really about planning, collecting data, learning what's really going on at the ground in your schools and identifying what those priority areas are and aligning them to those district-wide priorities so that ideally after the program year, the districts will then be able to go in with that intensive support for teachers and students. Let's see. So yes, by the end of this year, the cohort 2 districts will complete their plans and proceed with that data-informed district-wide professional learning for science and special educators. And I'll just note that The program is now focused on inclusion for broadly students with disabilities. So while the start was with MCAS alt students, and it was really important to start there, I think, because it really showed there's no excuse, okay? This is for all students. But now we are doing it broadly for all students in the district. And I'm really excited to keep doing this work. Something that isn't up here that I was reminded of is we're also, while we do hope to continue offering this program in future years, it is with IDEA funding through our special education team that is funding this work. We also hope to put some of the learning modules that we've created online so that people all over the Commonwealth can access them. So that's another exciting plan that we have. And I'll open it up for questions.
Well, I just want to say, board members, I want to just congratulate our team and our school team. Inclusion practices, you know, we struggle with that in our Commonwealth, and our data shows it. And I really like the fact that especially this most recent initiative is much broader and reaching, you know, multiple students with disabilities, but also younger grades, because again, science, even though I love science in high school, you know, we really do a disservice to our students when we don't expose them to science in a much earlier grade level. And we tend to exclude across the country our students with disabilities from much of this course content because we think it's too rigorous. So again, I just want to, the work is early, but I think it's, you know, there's some promising lessons that we're learning. And again, the work will continue. You know, of course, I've asked the team, you know, let's continue to see what data points we can start looking at in terms of student outcomes. But right now, you know, the work right now is really focused on the structures that we're trying to build across districts because our districts are really struggling with inclusion. And I love the fact that we're doing it in science because science, if you could do it in science, I'm sorry, you know, there's no excuse for, frankly, you know, just, you know, for literacy or other subjects.
Marianne?
I have some comments because even before this amazing presentation, I just really wanted to highlight, and I started to sort of riff on some of this with you during our call, Commissioner. So, you know, thinking about the high dosage tutoring in maths and how that's designed to really, you know, close opportunity gaps and stuff, accelerate learning, and then the students with disabilities get, you know, to be engaged and be seen. And I think that while these efforts are really a commitment to rigor, equity, and inclusion, to really they also invite us to think differently. And I think this comes at such a pivotal moment when we're talking about the vision for a graduate. And so so I'm trying to also get more comfortable with some of the language around what our vision is. So excuse me if I'm like blah, blah, blah about it. But I was just curious, you know, when you talk about some of the global traditions and sort of what gets seen, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the work of Margaret Wertheim. She's a science writer and an artist, and she's started this whole hyperbolic crochet project of coral reefs. And this was kind of a thing which was considered impossible. But now it's foundational to Einstein's theory of relativity. So it's like really just using crochet and tactile work and textiles, et cetera. And you can also look globally at fractal patterning in African work and also Polynesian sand drawings and all these great places, right? So just thinking about that as we go forward with what we're asking for, you know, future graduates to do. There are a lot of places that we can really think about it, and in terms of engaging educators in this work, that's not just conceptual, but actually tactile and actually you know, embodied in material things and also play. So I hope that we do more of that and have more of that kind of discussion as we go forward with this vision of a graduate, and we start hearing more and talking more about the particulars of that as well. Thank you.
Dr. Smithy?
This seems like very worthy work, and I appreciate hearing about it. Can you speak to the lack of representation in Western Mass and the Cape?
It's just, to some extent, folks opting into the program. So the first year, we accepted just about everybody who applied, and then a couple folks dropped out. We were able to get Nantucket on board this year, which was a win for us. But I think it's sort of spreading the word, and we have been doing that. So we presented about this at MSEL, the Massachusetts Science Education Leaders Association Conference this year. We had a lot of interest generated there, so we're just hoping to keep getting the word out, and then, doing targeted recruitment, out in Western Mass. We did have teachers from Springfield in that early institute, so we did get out there, I think, but yes, it's an area for growth.
So I think part of the interesting question that I hear in your question, Member Smitty, is, so right now, we've been trying to, in all of our efforts, including our literacy institutes, it's always, volunteer. So we don't require, one, we don't have the authority, but let's put that aside. So it's always been, but I think, what I see some promise, especially as we see lessons learned, as we're able to highlight best practices, is because the need is it's across the Commonwealth, and across, by the way, multiple districts of different income levels, this challenge, especially around inclusion, and especially in science. And so I think it's an interest, one of the things we're going to be thinking about is how do we, as we think about schools that are struggling, how do we prioritize, how do we, because I think as we show more and more promise of these practices, we're going to get more interest, which I think is good, and we see that already with the literacy institutes. But then also, how do we align them when there's a lot of need? And then I'll just, do a little shameless plug. Imagine what we could do if we had more resources. We could actually take this to scale. So that's always my challenge, because in any work we're doing, I see good evidence of good work. I struggle with the scale because, we start small, and then to your point about how do we get also the breadth across the Commonwealth.
That's right. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Thank you.
Our next agenda item, Board Chair, is our seal of biliteracy. These are proposed amendments for the regs for 603 CMR 31.04. So we will have Allison Balter, our Special Advisor and Director of Office of Language Acquisition, and Joe Wakeland from our legal staff. That will be there to also just answer questions. And I will say, when it comes up, Allison, I want to highlight the data slide that you have there, which again was just to sort of repeat some of the comments I heard from board members earlier today.
Perfect. Thank you, Commissioner, Secretary, members of the board. I am Allison Balter. I'm the Director of the Office of Language Acquisition.
And I'm Joe Wakeland. I'm an Associate General Counsel.
And let's see, so we are here today to propose amendments to the regulations on the State Seal of Biliteracy, 603 CMR 3104. And we're bringing these amendments to you today for a vote on whether or not to go out to public comment. And so in the next few minutes, what I hope to do is share some background on our State Seal of Biliteracy, including some hot off the presses data that the Commissioner referenced, explain the purpose of our proposed amendments, and then provide an overview of what those proposed amendments are. And we'll close with any next steps or questions or comments that the board has. So, the Massachusetts State Seal of Biliteracy was established under the 2017 Look Act to recognize graduates who are proficient in both English and another language, and in some cases multiple languages. As of last year, all 50 states in the nation award seals of biliteracy, which is super exciting. And currently in Massachusetts, we have 13 public institutions of higher education that are offering credit or advanced course placement for SEAL earners. So that's a tremendous opportunity for our graduates. When the SEAL was established in Massachusetts, the original criteria for demonstrating English proficiency was based on meeting the English Language Arts ELA MCAS standard of the competency determination. And so when question 2 was passed in November 2024, removing MCAS as a CD requirement, it meant that we had to align our state SEAL regulations to the amended state law. So that's really what brings us here today. But I also wanted to take a moment to share with you some data on our state seal, because we're really proud of it, and we did just get some very timely results from the 24-25 school year. So as you can see here, since the first class was eligible to earn the seal, which was school year 18-19, we've awarded over 18,000 Massachusetts graduates with the state seal of biliteracy. And very excitingly, in the past school year, we saw nearly 4,800 students earn the seal, which was 1,000 more than the previous year. This represents 6.9% of all of our graduates in Massachusetts, and that's, we're seeing that percentage continue to increase year after year.
So I just gotta say this, Allison, because when I saw this slide, everybody, somebody who's a long time advocate for dual language and multiculturalism, these are all high school students, which one is evidence of the wealth of language that we have in high schools, right? So the fact that these numbers have went up so much, I would make the argument, being all new, the new person, that these students have always existed in our system, and now we're just elevating them. And so and by the way, they also exist in the younger grades. So again, just to put out there what a wonderful vision it would be for our Commonwealth to have an aggressive, expansive of students with world languages, dual language programs, multilingualism, because we know that the students have the talent and they exist. And like I said, not just in high school, but they exist. It just happens that the high schools have the resources to be able to elevate them. And so I just think about the possibilities of doing this at the elementary level.
Yeah, absolutely. And what is more with this data is that we're seeing this growth happen across nearly every student group. We consider the seal of biliteracy in Massachusetts as an equity success for students who have ever been identified as English learners, which is not always the case in every state. And what we can see here on this graph is that students who were ever identified as English learners are completing the seal at higher rates than students who were never English learners. Even if the absolute numbers are smaller, the rates are higher. And so in 2024, 11% of ever English learners graduated with the seal compared to 3% of never else. In 2025, we saw 14.1% of ever else earn the seal, as well as 15.7% of students whose first language was not English. So this demonstrates both the strength and resilience of our multilingual learners in Massachusetts schools and honors the rich linguistic superpowers that they bring. So we believe and we hope that it's important to continue both increasing the number of students generally who earn the seal, as well as ensuring that the seal honors the rich linguistic assets of our multilingual students. And so with that data as a backdrop, we're here today to propose a set of amendments to the regulations with the following goals. We want to make sure, first and foremost, that we align the seal regulations with the updated competency determination law, as I mentioned. But we also see this as an opportunity to make a couple of additional small changes to clarify district responsibilities and streamline procedures when it comes to awarding the seal. Provide flexibility for demonstrating proficiency in English and other languages so that we can both strengthen equitable access for multilingual learners, as well as students who may enroll in Massachusetts schools after 10th grade when the MCAS is taken. And of course, across all of that, we want to make sure we're maintaining the rigor and integrity of the seal. So I'm going to walk through the specific changes that we're proposing, and I'll show you how they intend to remove the outdated competency determination references, clarify and streamline the operational procedures for districts around notification, transcripts, and terminology, expand pathways to demonstrate English proficiency, and support equitable access statewide. So the first amendment that we're proposing is simply to add the word annual to require yearly written notice to families to ensure that districts every year are notifying families about the seal. And this is just a small tweak, but it represents feedback that we've heard from districts that they want that clarity so that we can make sure all students are aware of the seal program each year, especially students who might come in later grades or later in the school year, right, and might miss a notification. The second proposed amendment is around the transcript. It's a clarification, again, based on feedback we've heard from districts. So our current regulations say that districts have the option to affix the seal either to the diploma or the transcript. And we want to specify that the seal must be affixed to the transcript. And the reason for this is because institutions of higher ed don't receive diplomas, right? They receive transcripts. And so it can be confusing when a student is going to apply for college or gets into college and wants, the credit or the placement that the seal awards, but they don't, the transcript isn't showing that, right? So if it's on the transcript, that will happen as well. So the third proposed amendment is an update on terminology. Since these regulations were passed, we have moved away from the term foreign language and used the term language other than English. That's what's in our current World Languages Framework. It's more inclusive and asset-based, and we want to make sure that we're reflecting that in these regulations as well. Our fourth proposed change is to specify, and this is specifically for assessments in languages other than English, that it requires that students take these assessments, or that the assessments count if they're taken in grade 8 or after. And the purpose of that is just simply to align the world language assessment requirement with the English assessment requirement, that it is a high school assessment. It's intended to be a period of time in the student's high school trajectory, but it gives a little bit of flexibility to include grade 8 in that, because many of our world language programs do use grade 8 as a key assessment year, and that is in line with the SEAL standards in many other states as well. So it would just maintain consistency and comparability of results. And then finally, and this is, I think, one of the most important pieces, right, is the change to the English proficiency criteria. So this is where we are proposing to remove the outdated CD-based language. And instead of saying, it has to align with the MCAS CD, we're establishing 3 updated criteria that are still in line with the original criteria. They still use the grade 10 ELA MCAS as a primary measure of demonstrating English proficiency, which is consistent with what's in our statute. We have to do that. But it would also authorize DESE to approve additional nationally recognized assessments of English proficiency. And again, that would help expand student options to demonstrate that proficiency in English, which could, both include students who are English learners and are demonstrating proficiency in alternative ways, or again, students who may arrive after 10th grade and not have taken the ELA MCAS. They might have additional opportunities to demonstrate that proficiency. So those are the proposed changes, and should the board vote to move this forward, we would send the proposed changes out for public comment. Public comment period would go through Friday, December 5th, and we would then hope to bring that back to the board for a vote at the January meeting. So we'll open it up for questions or comments.
Thank you. Marty first, and then.
So this is great. Love the seal of biliteracy for all the reasons people have said. And these changes, for the most part, make sense. The one I'm curious about is the last of the 3 options, the minimum score on a nationally recognized assessment approved by the department.
Yep.
I understand the rationale for doing that for late arrivals, those who come after the administration of the 10th grade MCAS, especially now that they don't need that to graduate, so that makes sense. But I'm wondering if we might want to limit that sort of pathway to only that population.
Mm-hmm.
I think we still think pretty highly of the 10th grade MCAS, and it's not clear to me that there's a better assessment of English proficiency out there. And so, again, I understand the idea of having an option for latecomers that is not getting them in the MCAS system, but I'd be interested, I guess, and I have no problem sending it out for public comment. I guess I'd be interested in knowing from the field whether there might be interest in limiting that option.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, I think that's an important question, something we can learn from the field as well. One of the pieces that was already in our existing regulations, and this came from the language of the competency determination, is that for students who earned the competency determination through the EPP, that they would use both their ELA MCAS score, which was not yet at the meeting expectations level, as well as if they demonstrated proficiency on the access exam. And that would still be included
That's
in
still
here.
here, yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
but this would be potentially a different, pathway.
Great point. Matt?
I have good presentation. I have no questions at all about putting this out for public comments. I have a question about kind of our policies with respect to public comments, which we're back to kind of December 5th, which is kind of 4.5 weeks from now, including kind of a period at the end of November when a lot of people are out, at the end of November. So I don't personally have an issue, but how much time do we want to leave things open for public comments just as a general practice? And again, it's not specifically tied to this. I don't know that there's going to be a lot of comments or controversy, but other things there are. And I guess I'm asking the question because I think it's a short period of time. I used to think it was open for 90 days, then it became 60, now it's less.
This has just been some confusion.
That's not specific to anything the two of you have done.
No, just, so you're right, the requirement is that the public comment period be 21 days from the date that it is posted in a newspaper of general circulation. For us, that's usually the Boston Globe, and posted in the Secretary of the Commonwealth's Register. That's the requirement. Ours is typically open longer because we post it open for public comment starting tomorrow, and it usually takes us a couple days. It's usually about 10 days to send that notice over to the Secretary and the Globe. So it usually ends up being a little bit longer than what's specifically required, but that's the actual legal requirement.
So I would just say this, and if there's a reason we have to have December 5th for this, all that's fine. There have been issues where we have had some strong feelings on the board about how short the public comment period is. And I would just say in general, not that you're proposing 21 days, but in general, if we want public comments, we should leave something open long enough to actually get public comments. If that means 60 days as a general practice, that's great. I don't want to mess you guys up here, so it could be for, starting the next time. But if we can start it now, that's not the end of the world either. So instead of having it maybe in time to process and present in January, you'll have it in time to process and present in February. Again, I know I've said this, not specific to this, but I think we should get kind of in the habit of actually having things open for a reasonable period of time.
Okay. I don't, but you're not proposing to amend anything on the timing on this?
If there's a sense from the group that we keep it open for 60 days or till the middle of December, fine. And if there's no sense of that, I'm fine dropping it. But let's not keep having this conversation every time something's open for public comment.
At least we know the 21 days is the minimum, and it's really what I'm hearing is 31 days is the minimum.
21 days is technically, that is the
That's the law.
That's the law.
You need 10 days in addition
But
to
usually
that.
it takes us to process it. It takes a little while or to send over those notices. But that's not to say that people can't submit public comment during that time. It's up on the website. It's available and open to comment during that time period anyway.
Ours are always up no matter what, 30 days.
Right.
Right, and again, before you got here, Commissioner, there was some discussion about 90, 60, we just didn't. So the question of specifically, I'm not sure that this is one of those matters that requires that, but I do think your comment, Vice Chair Hills, about meatier and weightier things that go across a broader spectrum of items and people maybe should be something we talk about in the future if you're not making a specific amendment for this.
I'm fine skipping the amendment. This is open for 35 days, including a week when a lot of people are gone. So again, I would look to my colleagues, if you don't care, I don't care for this one. But let's not have a whole discussion. Let's just say.
We should have an approach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we don't need a lot of time for the approach. It's how long do we want to leave it open for? And whether it's 60 days, whether it's 50 days, let's leave it open so people don't have to just scramble to get their comments in.
Well, if I'm recalling correctly, I think that the regional agreement regulations had to be extended because people didn't feel comfortable with how long it was posted. So it makes sense to post it for an amount of time where people are comfortable.
All right.
Are you I mean, I'm not pounding the table on this. Are you good with December 5th? Do you want to extend it? Does it mess you up if we extend it? Like,
It seems that most of these proposed regulations would not be so controversial as to warrant major public scrutiny or comment, but
so how about this? Stick with it, and going forward, anything after today that comes, let's kind of have a general understanding. The starting point is 60 days it's open for, unless there's some reason, compelling reason, that it should be open a little shorter period of time, and then present it to the board. And if you say not 60-50, fine.
unless there's a time period that, okay, we'll cross that bridge too. But again, I think it's a good guidance, Commissioner, from the board about the variability that we've experienced, and don't want to appear to be putting a thumb on the scale one way or another for certain things. But in this case, it seems like these are pretty technical amendments to comply with the CD change.
I don't think it's unreasonable to have something up for public comment for 60 days. And just to be clear, Vice Chair, it would be 60, like, all days, because I think the 21 days is it business days, or is it just, it doesn't matter?
It's calendar days.
Okay, so 60 calendar days, just to be clear, because
That's
all
fine.
these technicalities.
My comfort zone is not like having a discussion like on whether it's like 60 business, 60, I mean, like, I'm good in general as long as people have, like, don't feel like, yeah, we want your comments, but not enough to kind of leave it open. It's not going to be an issue here. So I know we've had this issue before, and I should be like the last person who brings this sort of thing up. But
The only reason I was mentioning it, Vice Chair, is that 60 days is pretty common at the district level in terms of policies.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying, like, that's very familiar to me, so that's why I was just clarifying that it was, and in some states it's calendar days, some states it's business days, so every state's a little different, but 60 days as a norm is, I think, consistent with school districts. So I think after today, we could adopt that and then plan for that accordingly.
Okay, great. Did you have a question, Farzan?
I don't have a question, I have a comment, but not on the number of days for which we on the general matter of the seal of bioliteracy. I think it's really terrific that we recognize this, because it's such a fundamental and foundational skill to be able to have fluency in cross-cultural interactions and multicultural interactions. I'm really encouraged, and I know we've talked about this before, Commissioner, to hear you say it would be terrific if we thought about doing this at the elementary school level, where kids are really open to learning other languages. And I think it builds the very foundational skill of empathy, which is a quality that I think is so important to be able to engage in civic life and civic discourse in a respectful way when people don't always understand one another. So I hope that we'll really consider that as we look through solidifying the vision of a graduate and think about it across grade levels.
Great point. Okay, so do I have a motion to solicit public comment on the proposed amendments to the regulations? In a second?
Second.
We need a roll call, Helene, or is Christina off? Okay, so I can just call it by yeas and nays. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you.
So the next presentation will be even shorter, board members, but it is another proposed amendment to our regs for student records, again, also connected to the change in law for the minimum competency requirement. So Rob Curtin will present our proposed change. And again, this will also go to public comment.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, board members. Good to be with you all again. So this also falls into the category of asking you to solicit public comment on for regulations that relate to the cleanup as a result of the ballot question in last November, and the use of the competency determination in our regulations. So this specifically is about our regulations related to student records. And you can see here, this is the specific piece that's only one definition in 2302 that we are asking to go out for public comment. And you can see here that the changes that we have made. We did take the opportunity to do a couple things in addition to strike through on the word competency determination. So you'll see the first one there is we have eliminated the use of the his, her pronouns to be more inclusive, and we just referred to the student's birth date. And we have specified that, and you'll see where we've eliminated the required for the competency determination line, and we've just put high school MCAS test as a piece of pertinent information to be on the transcript, but eliminated the reference to the competency determination. And then the last thing we did, and this ties in nicely to the presentation you just heard, we have also asked or proposing that any seal or award endorsed by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, like the Seal of Biliteracy, be on the transcript as well. So that is the totality of what we're doing here. It's on one definition of the word transcript. And we are, again, asking for public comment, and Member Hills is, again, till December 5th. That's when we were going for there. What we're asking for is, again, this falls very much into sort of the cleanup category, in addition to us adding the piece about the seals to this one definition. So we're hoping that these can be sent out to public comment by you today.
And board members, the secretary and I are both proponents of other seals that we'll add. So that we wanted to be clear that it's not just the seal of biliteracy, but also other seals that we want added to the transcript. So seals for early college, career tech education. The community representing students with disabilities gave us a lot of ideas about also even ones that we can really elevate for students with disabilities. So again, more to come on that.
I was going to comment on that.
Yeah,
I appreciated it being written in a way that is evergreen.
So
so we don't have to have another agenda item.
The point is here is that we don't have to come back to you on this definition of transcript, should we adopt more formalized seals.
Great. Okay, well, do I have a motion to solicit public comment on these proposed amendments to the regulations?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, the ayes have it. Thanks, Rob.
And then the next one, also Rob will be presenting. This is an interesting one, board members. This is related to what's happening at the federal level, specifically because we're the authorizer for charter schools. So one of the things that, in order to make sure that we can help our charter schools be compliant with our regs, this is a proposal that we're asking you for your approval.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner. This one, as the Commissioner said, is a direct result of the government shutdown. And so what we're asking the board to do today is to waive a November 1st required date for certain charter schools to submit to us their financial audits. And for those charter schools that submit that spend more than $750,000 worth of federal funds, in addition to an audit of their financial statements, they're required to have a single audit as well. That single audit is conducted related to guidance produced by OMB, and prior to the government shutdown, the OMB did not finalize that guidance. It doesn't exist in a finalized form right now. We have a statutory requirement that the audit is conducted by January 1st, and a regulatory requirement that it is conducted by November 1st. So it's possible that we might have to still come back to you as it relates to this January 1st piece. We're going to figure that part out. But as it relates to November 1st, we are asking the board to waive the regulatory requirement around November 1st because there simply isn't the guidance to allow these charter schools to do this well. This is only applicable to, again, place the charter schools that spend, it's actually charter schools, virtuals, and collaboratives that spend more than $750,000 worth of federal funding. It does not apply to other districts, city and town districts. They are not governed by a state statutory date like our charter schools are, and regulatory with the January 1st and November 1st respectively.
The only thing I would add, board members, is, but this affects everybody nationwide who has to be part of a single audit.
Yeah.
So whether you're a school district, whether you're a nonprofit or a university, if you have a certain level of federal funding over 750,000, you have to have a single audit. And so, unfortunately, the shutdown is affecting everybody, but in this case, this is particular to our regs for our charters that have to submit their audits by November 1st.
Right. For other districts, they're not due, they're due 9 months after the close of the fiscal year, so they're not due until March 31st, so it's not necessarily an issue right now, but it is a specific issue for these charters, virtuals, and collaboratives that spend more than $750,000 as a result of our regs. So we're asking the board to waive the November 1st deadline, and then we will have to figure out what we're going to do as it relates to the January 1st statutory deadline as well.
That was going to be my next, it was going to be my follow-up question, because it says prior to January 1st.
Yep.
We don't know how long the shutdown is going to be.
That's
and
right.
What the implications, so.
Yeah, that's
We have
right.
to come back and vote on it?
Well, the board doesn't have the authority to waive the statute, so we're going to have to, there's some work for us to do to figure this next piece out, but the part that's right in front of us right now is the November 1st regulatory deadline, but we're going to have to, we know we have to do some work to do here on the January 1st part as well.
I move to approve.
Any second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anybody? No. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Next board meeting is November 18th. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thanks. We're adjourned.